I got into gymnastics by accident, which sounds like the same story of everyone I know who's a gymnast, especially guys. Like most people, I started at a birthday party. I was young and I went to a birthday party. I was 4 or 5 years old. And at that time, a lot of the gymnastics coaches in the United States were from the former Soviet Union. And they had a very different philosophy on things. So when I left the party that day, the coach came up to my mother and said, he's gonna do gymnastics. Then my mother said, well, I'm gonna ask him if he'd like it, but it had been fun, I guess. And so 5 years old, I started and competed all through New York State. I won New York State's championship when I was 7 for the first time, and I won it again when I was 9. I was a member of the regional team for many, many years in the Northeast. Then I went on to college. I did gymnastics all through college. I was the team captain my senior year, where we were a 3-in-a-row division champion, and we were top 10 nationally that year. Competing at elite level is a very interesting experience. While obviously there's all the sort of cool things about it, like it sounds fun and you're out there and you know things are being televised, or you know you're at a big time competition, there's a lot of excitement about it. It's also obviously really nerve-wracking and really scary. And the first time, I remember the first time you go from competition on a floor to competition up on podiums, because if you notice now, if you've watched any of the Olympic trials or anything, all of the events are lifted off the ground by about 5 or 6 feet. It's to make it easier to see from the rest of the stadium, but it's just a very intimidating experience when you walk up a set of stairs and realize that if I fall off, I might fall off this and then tumble down a set of stairs. There were so many positives that I took from that level of pressure. And again, as a surgeon today, I think so much of my demeanor and so much of the way I handle stress in surgery is exactly the same way we handled stress in elite competition. I think the other thing that people don't quite realize is the physical toll gymnastics takes on people. The injury rate of gymnastics in elite level women is 100%. It is the only sport with a 100% injury rate. Gymnasts face every single injury a human being can ever have. There is probably not a single injury I've never seen in gymnastics, whether it's broken bones, which happen mostly as you're younger, right? Because especially as we know with pediatrics, your ligaments are almost stronger than your bones. So everyone I know broke at least something growing up doing gymnastics. A lot of elbows, a lot of wrists, a lot of ankles, a lot of fingers, lots and lots of finger fractures. And then as you get older, they turn into soft tissue injuries, ligament injuries. Unfortunately, a lot of ACL tears, a lot of patellar tendon tears. And then there's some really interesting and unique ones to gymnastics, like impaction injuries of the upper extremities, which basically mean you walk on your hands so much that you damage the growth plates of your bones and they grow at different rates. And then you see the bad ones, right? Then there are really bad injuries in gymnastics. I've seen people break their neck, I've seen people break their back. I have had many injuries along the way, and I often tell the story because it's how I came to HSS, right? My first entrance into HSS was in the office of Dr. Tony Rose. I hurt my hip very badly. I must have been 13 or 14 years old, and so I had this terrible problem in my hip. It was snapping out loud, like you could hear it across the room when I stood up from the chair. It was extraordinarily painful. I could barely put weight on my hip at certain times of the day. I couldn't practice. I saw a local orthopedist and they were like, we don't know what's wrong with you, but you can never do gymnastics again. I just didn't want to hear it, so I convinced my dad we have to leave Staten Island, and so we went to Brooklyn, where we saw another specialist who said, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you definitely need surgery. I was like, what do you mean you don't know what's wrong with me, but I need surgery? Like, generally, I would imagine if I need surgery, you would know what you were going to do. But okay, I wasn't super comfortable with that, and we started doing a little bit of research. And we heard about this hospital for special surgery. And there was a doctor that took care of the New York City Ballet. And if anybody's gonna have hips like a gymnast, be a ballet dancer. Dad had to take the day off from work. We took the ferry to the subway, right? Because Staten Island, you're not gonna drive all the way here. And we finally got here, and I walked into the office, and I was so excited because I was gonna get this detailed answer, stood up out of the chair, and my hip made a sound that you would have thought like you'd cringe. And he looks at me, he goes, you have a snapping hip. Here's your prescription for physical therapy. It was really nice meeting you. Walked out. Knew what it was by standing up from a chair. The difference between an expert and everyone I'd seen before. And that day, Tony saved my whole career. 6 months later, back in the gym, back in competition, 3 years later off to college. But it's funny, it's actually the injuries that led to all the opportunities, that led to the desire, right? The reason I wanted to become an orthopedic surgeon was I wanted to help people the way that my orthopedic surgeon helped me, the way that Tony helped me.